Hi, everyone. This is Jamie West with the Substitute Management Advisory Council bringing you the Substitute Scoop podcast today. On this episode, we're going to talk to Christina Griffin from the Crete Monee School District in Illinois and learn about her guest experience from entry to excellence. So here's the scoop. So, Christina, tell us a little bit about your district, what you do, what your position is, and maybe your district size. Tell us a little more.
Okay, so right now I'm operating in the at the intersection of um, recruitment, so talent acquisition, and I manage everything involving our guests. We call it guest services. So where some people may refer to them as substitutes, we refer to them as guests, and it pretty much aligns with
Mhm.
our theme is be our guest. So it creates the framework for or sets the mood for like a guest experience, right? Um, and so we're really excited about the growth of our guest services. Right now, we're at about 4,400 students district wide. We're a K through 12 district, but we have a strong pre-K program, and we also have an alternative school as well. So we
Mhm.
have 5 K through 5 elementary schools, and then we have our pre-K program. We have a high school, 9th through 12th, middle school, 6th through 8th, and then our pre-K program, of course, our babies. So, um,
Okay.
yeah,
Awesome.
and we're like
Awesome. Go
35
ahead.
minutes outside of Chicago, so outside of the city.
Okay.
We're in a
Okay.
rural area of the south suburbs,
Mhm.
so very interesting dynamic, but it's
Yeah,
great. It's a great place to
definitely.
work, great place to
That's
live.
awesome. So, you did mention that you have an alternative school.
Mhm.
What does that mean that you have an alternative school? Explain.
So we have a program. It's actually connected to our high school. It's mostly high school students, but they also have like the capacity for 6th through 8th grade as well. And it's called Bridges. So it's a dynamic program that the district has been um, making available for students who really just need a smaller setting. Also, if they have any behavior, even though it's not like behavior based, we have the capacity to also cater to some of
Mhm.
those challenges as well, and just help the students to thrive. Because in our district, we meet students right where they are, and they're not all in the same space. Just like as adults, we're not. Um, in that program in that area, it's a beautiful wing. It's an addition to our high school that came about 2 years ago now,
Mhm.
and it was under the name Money Education Center before, but they wanted to align with the benefits of the program. So it's bridges. It's bridging the gap between a
I
traditional
love that.
setting and a setting that's catered to those students who just simply need an alternative placement. So
Yeah.
they can still be a
Yeah.
part of the district, but not necessarily in a typical high school setting.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. I love that you mentioned that you meet students where they are.
yeah,
I like to believe that when we also deal with substitutes or guests, like you like to call them,
yeah,
we meet them where they are, right?
absolutely.
We got to make sure that we have the best support for our students, but also filling our support system
Hmm.
with that support on the front end is the best way to do that. And those guests are a big vital role to that system, right? So, one of the things I'd like to ask in regards to just your role, all the things you're doing, right, and loving on these guest teachers and giving them that guest experience, right?
Hmm.
What would be your biggest hurdle in that recruitment of those guest teachers and retaining those guest teachers?
Well, Jamie, one thing I would say is that we're past the hurdle of recruitment. We've
Mhm.
created a framework that really aligns with what someone who's committed to student success, but not necessarily available, every single day. Um,
Mhm.
they want to be a part of the district. So we're past the hurdle of, where are they? Now we know where they are, and it's just about retention. It's about recognition at this point. So when I was first tasked with this out project, if you will, of
Mhm.
aligning our guests with our mission, we had 3 pillars that we were gonna operate under, and those were, recruitment, retention, and recognition. And so after we decided, we being our team, so even though I manage it on a day to day, I just really have to give a shout out to everyone who, which is everyone in the district, because it takes all of us, right? The
Mhm.
interaction is not just limited to us, folks in HR or district office. It's at every single building. It's in every single classroom. It just takes a village, and so. Um, Also, our superintendent and our board is behind this 100%. So some of the things we're doing, we're able to do, and we have been able to do it successfully over the last 3 years, is because we just have the buy-in, and it starts top down, right? So our guests are
Mhm.
literally walking into an experience every single day. We operate under the theme "Be Our Guest," and it's been serving us well. So if you are any fan of or heard of Disney, then you may be familiar with the "Be Our Guest, Be Our Guest." And so when I was pitching
Mhm.
this concept, I literally led with that song, because I
I
needed
love it.
everyone to understand just how deep we could go. And if they weren't ready for that, then they needed to let me know, because we were going to take off. And so that's what we've been able to do with this collective effort. It's a shared vision. And so
Yeah,
we're past the recruitment part again, and we are focused on retention and recognition.
I love that. So, being part of the Substitute Management Advisory Council, one of our major pillars is culture and recognition.
Hmm.
That subculture, that guest culture, really a school culture, just
Hmm.
means so much. It impacts the vibe, the feeling, the attitude, right? Is contagious every day. So I love that you talk about that guest
Hmm.
experience. Experience is something that I like to equate to engagement.
Hmm.
Engagement is experience, and experience is engagement, right? And so, thinking of cultural recognition, you are engaging
Hmm.
with your guests on your campuses. So, give me a good idea of maybe help me visualize what these celebrations, what this recognition looks like. Do you celebrate your guests? Do you have awards? So, are there different things you do throughout the year? Share that with me.
Yeah, so every day, I mean, we have guests who've been in our district for years. I mean, they might be eligible for TRS retirement at this time. They've been there so long, and we appreciate that commitment. Um, when we have some who are new, and they've been here, this may be their first year in the 24-25 school year, or, even being here for a year or two already is still just a very new experience. And we know just from the structure of a guest, you're new every day when you walk into these different classrooms. And so for us, it's from entry to excellence. So as soon as they enter the building, they step into the guest experience. So it's, "Hi, we're happy to have you." And it's so real, because we can't function without them. Um,
Mhm.
in fact, it's been situations over the years where we've had to, and it was challenging, because we're going to have absences. We're going to have PD that requires coverage. Um, we're going to have vacancies. It's education, and we know, there's a shortage globally in education. So we're not exempt. We're impacted by that. So it's about every single day. For us, every single liaison at the building, which would be our building secretaries for the most part. We have a
Mhm.
direct point of contact. So they know exactly what the guests should experience, and they're committed to that. And our guests know what they should experience. So they're given everything they need. At the handshake is, "Hi, welcome to our building," or "Welcome back. It's good to see you. Glad you were able to come in." They have a sign in process, and it's streamlined. They know where they should go. Everyone is directing them, because again, you never know if it's somebody new or a seasoned guest. It may be their first time in your building. So
Mhm.
just making sure we're creating that connection. And you talked about the culture for guests, but they need to be aligned with the culture for our district. Our
Mhm.
district is big on recognition and celebrations. And so we just pretty much bring them into um, that same concept.
Hey y'all, sorry to interrupt this episode, but I wanted to give a shout out to the sponsor of the Substitute Scoop podcast, Red Rover. Red Rover makes smart, easy to use software that helps K 12 schools handle the important stuff like hiring, absences, and time tracking. Over 1,500 districts have already made the switch. If you're interested in learning more, go to redroverk12.com to schedule your free demo today. One of the things that I see a lot of districts do for obviously teachers, you mentioned, even putting time off for absences for going to professional workshops, professional duty, professional learning, whatever you may call it in your district. A lot of districts have those on-call subs and have that extra PD for their teachers, but not every district has professional development or training opportunities for their subs. And I understand that you guys do. So when you think about professional development for subs, what does that look like for you in your district?
So we measure everything. Data is really important. We're heavy on data. For me, I'm data driven. The
Hmm.
reason being is because the old saying is, if it can't be measured, it can't be improved. So part of our metrics are it includes surveys. It included focus groups, ongoing conversations and observations
Hmm.
of our guests, and action and feedback. From those teachers and administrators, and again, our liaisons at the building who interact with them on a day to day basis, and they are having these experiences with them on a day to day basis. So right now, we're sitting at about 150 guest educators, and but we
Okay.
have guests in all categories. So at the start of the school year, we have I'm tasked with the responsibility of coordinating. And again, it's a shared vision, collective effort, and buy-in from everyone throughout the district. But I'm tasked with coordinating PD for our guest educators, as well as our guest secretaries and guest everyone. So, but for our
Hmm.
guest educators specifically, at the start of the school year, when you have your new teacher orientation and you're welcoming back all of your your returning staff and new staff members, right? Um, we also have a segment where we have a designated space over 2 days. It's 4 hours per day. So we do an afternoon and then a morning session of two very different um, topics. And so what happens is we have a CPI de-escalation training for all of our guests.
Okay.
So right now with 150 guests, 75 to 80 of them, so half of them are CPI certified. Um,
Hmm.
we have internal CPI coaches who are certified, so they run that for me. I coordinate the days.
That's awesome.
We make sure that our all of our guests are aligned with Skyward attendance, so that there's no delay in attendance. We know attendance is crucial, and it directly impacts your funding as a school district. So it was a priority for us to make sure that they were able to operate the attendance software, and that it was completed, accurately. And then,
Hmm.
so that's another thing that we focus on during this time. Um, Curriculum. So,
Hmm.
how do you follow those lesson plans? If you don't have a lesson plan, what do you do?
Hmm.
We cover that early on as well in the school year. And I'm trying to think, safety and security is huge, because the safety of our students and staff members, as well as our guests, should not be compromised because you have a guest teacher. So we dive deep into safety and security, what that looks like, what you should be looking for. And then we give them tools because we have a guest services hub. And so this is like a one-stop shop for our guests, educators, as well as anyone who's interacting with them. Um, like our building administrators, we have a hiring manager page dedicated to just
Hmm.
things that they need in order to make sure that the interactions and expectations are applied consistently across our very large district. Because in terms of
Hmm.
land mass, um, we're the second largest district in the state of Illinois in terms of land mass. So,
Wow.
but whether they're in Monee or Crete or University Park or Park Forest, we expect that they have a consistent experience. So what does that look like with safety and security? Our director of safety and security, he comes in and facilitate that part of the training. Our IT team comes in
Mhm.
to make sure that everyone has access to their login information for email, because we know everything can be FOIA, and we just want
Yeah.
it's consistent, right? Whether you have a guest or not, we're in compliance, and best
Mhm.
practices being applied. So we make sure that we have the experts in those areas come in and they volunteer their time and
Yeah.
they complete the training for me. In addition to that, we do a really big, um, if you will, I mean, it's 150 people, right? So just what is it? What do you call it? An icebreaker. So, like,
Okay.
last year we did a huge icebreaker. I came up with, and it's just to get them in, it's PD, but it doesn't have to be boring. So again, it's the
Yeah.
experience. So, I came up with like Billie Jean, for example, split the group up into like 6 different groups. And so, I say Billie Jean, and then they had to finish it. So they would,
Mhm.
write it out and see, and they had so many seconds to write it out as a group. And then at the end, once we finish, like Billie Jean's Not My Lover, or you can come up with something else like just whatever. I went with like popular, well-known, songs and artists so
Songs.
that they could be familiar, but it got rough. It got rough in there. I mean, they were competitive, so it was a great icebreaker. So that's just one component of guest services. And to me, we know the safety and security, we know curriculum, we know attendance, all of those things are important. Um, but for the
Mhm.
district, again, PD doesn't have to be dreadful. So we kept it light as well as informative and timely. Yeah. So
Awesome.
that's just
There is one clarification.
Mhm.
When you use an acronym, and I love for our listeners to know what our acronyms mean
Okay.
because not every acronym is the same from district to district. So
Absolutely.
you said CPI when you were talking about training. What does CPI stand for you?
So that's the intervention metrics that we use. It's you know what? Because you asked me that. It's
That's
de-escalation.
okay.
Yeah, it's our de-escalation training, and I'm just gonna go to our hub because honestly, I know it like the back of my hand. I'm actually CPI de-escalated or CPI trained myself, but because you're asking me, it's at the tip of my tongue. Hold on one second. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's okay. It's nice for listeners to know what our acronyms
Yeah, yeah,
mean. We have
absolutely.
learned that
Yes,
they
you're
all are
right.
different.
Yeah. But while you're saying that, so what happens in the CPI de-escalation training, they're trained on essentially how to de-escalate a situation, and it can be
Mhm.
applied. It's a common crisis response, so
Okay.
it can be applied not just with students to be proactive, about keeping things from escalating to another level, whether it's a conflict or there may be behavior things, but it can be anything. And a lot of officers are certified in CPI because in their line of work, it's critical, right, to prevent situations from happening. But it can also be
Mhm.
applied, and I get a lot of feedback about this from our guests that they appreciated it because it's helping them in their everyday life to not
I
only
love
prevent
that.
but to recognize and respond to the crisis, you know. And so it's been huge, but hold on a second. It's Crisis Prevention Institute is what it stands for.
Okay. Awesome. I love that. And I think a lot of districts have implemented something along those lines.
Hmm.
We have a very similar in my district in Florida. And that safety and security piece has become such a huge, huge topic.
Hmm.
And with substitutes and guest teachers and anyone who's even new to campus, it
Hmm.
kind of feels like they're on the back burner and that they don't quite have that knowledge. So having that special training has become so important
Yes.
because we have learned you never know what will happen. And so it's student safety is key, and our subs having confidence in that student safety. I
Hmm.
think the more tools we can put in their toolkit, the better.
Oh,
And I think
absolutely.
just the more that I hear you talk about your professional development programs, I'm like, man, I want to come up to your district and just see what you do
Yes, well,
before school
CPI,
starts.
the CPI, thank you, Jamie. But CPI, so the Crisis Prevention Institute,
Mhm.
and then also the PBIS. I know I mentioned PBIS as well. So that's our positive behavior intervention and support. So before you catch me
Mhm.
off guard, I'll just go ahead and mention it. But our district is aligned with PBIS, and so it's really important. Our PBIS director comes in and she deep dives into best practices, and so our guests
Mhm.
are confident. They're not only equipped, but they're confident when they go into the classrooms, because we know every guest. It's and we're recruiting is an ongoing thing, so we may not capture them all at the start of the school year. We have all of that information available to them in the guest services hub. So it's on demand PD. They can go in, they can access this
Love it.
information, and you won't have the full experience. Obviously, you would have missed out um, on the icebreaker. You would have missed out on all the energy that circulated, in those rooms, but you'll still have access to that very important information. And then we do coffee talks, which is a form of PD as well, because now we're going to talk about your actual experience. And then we're able
I
to
love that.
address some of the things that you're experiencing, whether it's an issue or, even if you just want to give us a shout out and tell us you appreciate, exactly what we're doing, but what we're doing that helps you. Is very interactive, and then it's an opportunity for all of our guest educators to hop on with the assistant superintendent of personnel and culture, or HR, if you will, because our cadre teachers, which we can talk a little bit more about if you like, the different categories of guest educators. We have cadre teachers as well. They are benefit eligible. So we've had our benefits coordinator on. We've had, several guests on as well with the coffee talk. So
Mhm.
we're not as fancy as this advisory council, but we are live and interactive. So it's pretty much, a similar concept, right? We're learning more about
It
their
is.
experience and able to address some of the things that are concerning for them on the spot. So,
It is. It is. And I think that's what's the most important is you're constantly engaging.
mhm,
Doesn't necessarily matter how you're engaging or what to what degree, right? It's that you're meeting them where they are
mhm.
and that you are constantly giving them the best experience that you possibly can. And I think if we learn anything from today's podcast, I think the listeners can definitely take away that you can go above and beyond and well within budget, right? Well within your means in your district, and just have those open arms
Mhm.
for your subs and give them the best experience. So, I say we're going to go ahead and wrap it up. And I just want to say thank you so much, Christina, for sharing as much as you could. I'm sure we could talk for hours about this stuff
Yeah.
from your district, but I'm just so glad to have you on. If before we go, I do want to ask, is there any advice for let's say we have a brand new sub manager out there who just started in their district and they feel overwhelmed and have no idea where to start? What advice would you give them about managing subs and that the purpose that is there, and maybe share your why with us?
Okay. That is definitely, I think, a great way to end it. But I don't look at it like I'm managing subs. I'm managing
Mhm.
the everything that affects them, right? It's more leadership than anything. And so the experience that they get from me, I'm the first point of contact, you know, from the recruitment to the onboarding experience, before Beck and Elizabeth gets involved, which they're phenomenal as well. But even before they have any other interaction with anyone else, I want to make sure that they are treated like human beings, that they're treated like valuable members of the Crete Monee School District.
Mhm.
Like I said before, we have a culture of recognition, and we love to celebrate in our district. So it's just about getting them on board with that. But on a higher level, strategically, every time we interact with a guest, it's an opportunity a pipeline opportunity, if you will. These are your future educators. They're already bought into student success. They're already bought into working with students, right, with scholars, and for one reason or another, they're interested in education. So these are potential teachers. We have a teacher shortage. I talked about that early on, a global shortage with educators. They could be a math teacher. And many of our guest
Mhm.
teachers have been part of that pipeline and are now part of full-time roles. Some of our guest teachers are like, you know what, I want to break from the classroom and I'm going to go into a secretary role. They're filling in for those full-time vacancies. And
Mhm.
so I look at them as every single guest educator is a potential pipeline opportunity. And
Mhm.
so they truly are valuable. And I think that if you approach it from that standpoint, fundamentally just treating people good, right? How you would want to be treated, and then understanding the impact that they could have on your
Mhm.
district and solving a lot of the issues that your districts many of our districts are experiencing, whether it's like the aging workforce or you're expanding programs in your district or your student population is growing. Like those are three things top of our list, where we're being proactive about. And so, but if you look at it from that lens, I think it just sets the tone. And a lot of these things can be implemented. It just takes time. It takes the dedication to like consistently, applying the same thing over and over, because once you expose them to that type of experience, there's no going back. But that's what I would tell them, is to just set the framework. For me, it's like theme based. So be our guest. Feel free to take it. I'm happy to share. But set the theme and then just consistently go back to your theme. Like, does this align with that? Is this best practice? Um,
Mhm.
and then I think you will be rocking and rolling, and you'll have more people to interview about, how they're leading the initiatives concerning their guest educators. So yeah, that's what I would give them.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Christina. I've absolutely loved talking with you today. And I think our listeners will just have so much homework to do. They have learned so much from you in just a short period of time. So thank you again. And that's the Substitute Scoop.
Thank you.